By referring to the term Orthodox Diaspora, we refer to the Orthodox Christians living beyond the limits of jurisdiction of the local Orthodox churches. These are mainly the Orthodox brothers of the Northern and South America, Australia and West Europe. Most of these Orthodoxies originate from countries where the Orthodox doctrine is prevalent and which, for financial reasons, had to immigrate in the 19th and 20th century. The Orthodox of Diaspora, immediately after settling in a specific place, took care of organizing themselves in communities in such a way, on one hand, they maintained alive the contact amongst them, whereas on the other hand, they attempted to have a joint approach of the many and as different problems they faced in the areas of their new establishment. The main pursuit of those communities was the effort to salvage the national, cultural and religious identity, which of course was at risk as a result of the continuous interaction with populations of different religion and different nationality. Within the context of such effort, therefore, one of the first actions they undertook was the establishment of churches that have ever since been the epicenter around which there is developed and evolving the life of every Orthodox community. One of the most serious issues afferent to the life of the communities, at times dealt with differently, was their ecclesiastical jurisdiction. At that primal immigration time, there was quite a lot of confusion amongst the Orthodox as to that issue. The immigration, which at times took a massive character, created an issue as to the fluctuation of those populations, because in cities that in the past only numbered some hundreds of Orthodox at best, and now there came hundreds of them, thousands of them from all over the world: Greeks, Serbs, Russians, or Romanians, etc. Variances as of the state of origin, racial origin and language, the insecurity, the intense feeling of nostalgia and the maintenance of close ties with the motherland governing the souls of the new immigrants, and the gradual penetration of the ideology of ethno-racialism have been those factors that rendered very, very difficult a uniform assimilation. Therefore, from the early onset, there was the phenomenon of the existence of parallel ecclesiastical jurisdiction within the same region. More specifically, the various groups of Orthodox organized themselves ecclesiastically on the basis of the criterion of their national origin, which is a fact that as a direct effect had that within the same ecclesiastical zone there have been more than one bishops, one for the Greek Orthodox, other for the Russian Orthodox, another one for those coming from the Arabic-speaking Orthodox of the East, and so on. Such situation that has been going on to this day has created the so-called diaspora issue, since, according to the principles of the Orthodox ecclesiology, every ecclesiastical province has to have one and only bishop who will be in charge of the totality of faithful in his bishopry, irrespective of the national or racial origin. More specifically, all churches in the history of Christianism have been of local character, and there were local criteria taken into consideration for their establishment. The clergy comprised all those inhabiting the same region, typically this being the first church of Jerusalem, comprising Christians not only of Judaic origin but also of many other national origins. The inhomogeneity was typical for other churches, without for that ever raising the issue of division on the basis of racial or cultural origins of their members. Never was it observed, at least historically, the phenomenon of the existence of two churches or two bishops in one and the same province, whatever problems they may have risen, and which in fact have not even been problems as a result of national unhomogeneity, were tackled by other ways without for that undermining the unity or the cohesion of churches. Such practice was reflected on the decisions of the First Ecumenical Council, which, departing from the need for the return of the first heretics that were created in the first centuries, and with this pretext, the council took care that no two bishops are present within the same town. On the canon number 8, it is provided that quotation in ancient Greek.
Προσέρχονται τινές πρόδειλων ως ο μεν επίσκοπος της Εκκλησίας έξι το αξίωμα του επισκόπου. Ο δε ονομαζόμενος παρά της λεγόμενης καθαρής επίσκοπος την του πρεσβυτέρου τιμήν έξι, πλην η μη άρα δοκίη του επισκόπου της τιμής του ονόματος αυτόν μετέχει. Είδε τούτο αυτό μη αρέσκει, επινοήσει τόπον ή χωρεπισκόπου ή πρεσβυτέρου υπέρ του εν το κλήρο όλος δοκίν είναι. Η να μη εν τη πόλη δύο επίσκοποι όσην. Σε ό,τι αφορά στην...
When it comes to the objection raised that the autocephalous churches are national, basically churches, hence the ethno-racialism embedded as a factor of shaping of the Western climate in the Orthodox Church, we have to determine that the problematic of Diaspora has nothing to do with the autocephality of the Church. The autocephalous churches have clear-cut local limits within which they are meant to exclusively exercise their jurisdiction. Otherwise said, there are no two or more ecclesiastical authorities within the same province, as the case is with the Diaspora churches. Moreover, when it comes to the flock, it comprises all Orthodox inhabiting the territory, irrespective of their national origin. It is, of course, a fact that the establishment of national states happened on the basis of national and racial criteria, and precisely because of the imposition or the penetration of the ideology of the ethno-racialism in the world of the Church, there have been the various autocephalous phenomena of the 19th and 20th century, but this is a topic that goes beyond the scope of this announcement. In the world of the Church, the national racism as a way of justifying the creation of two churches not only is not conformant to the tradition of the Orthodox Church, but was even scorned and rejected officially as of the major local council convoked in 1872 in Constantinople. The 1872 Council dealt with the irregular creation of Bulgarian Exarchy, and moreover with the implementation of the national racialism ideology in Church, which was also the deeper reason for the emergence of this specific problem. Following a very thorough examination of the issue, the Council came up on one hand on the unreserved condemnation of this national racism and on the other hand on the proclamation of the Bulgarian Exarchy as schismatic. Of course, one might legitimately wonder, why is it so important to have only one bishop by local church? What is so important a reason as for us not to be able to accept a kind of administrative reform towards a coexistence of more than one bishops within the same province? Now, if the issue was of pure administrative nature, this specific question may not have had any fundament, but the problem, I believe, consists in the fact that the entire issue also knows some ecclesiological dimensions having to do with the unity of the Church. More analytically, on the basis of the principles of Orthodox ecclesiology, the unity of the Church knows many facets. It is expressed by the unanimousness on faith issues, on the existence of love amongst its members, the common effort towards the materialization of evangelical truths, but most and above all, it is expressed through the participation of the faithful in the sacrament of Holy Eucharisty, because it is by participating in this specific sacrament that there is attained the incorporation of the faithful in the person of Christ, but also amongst them. It is the supreme fulfillment of the unity of each faithful with the Christ through the communion in body and in blood, and the same goes for the rest of those Christians communing through the same chalice. Not by accident, therefore, that in the early Christian years, Eucharistic congregation was identified in terms with the notion of the church. Otherwise said, the church does not have the notion it has today as to the totality of Christians believing and following the truths of Christian doctrine. Rather, and most above all, church was about the Eucharistic congregation in which participated Christians of all local churches. In the course of time, the semantics may have changed as to what church is about, but in essence, the church remains the same. The Holy Eucharist as a congregation and the unity between amongst the faithful and Christ identifies with the church itself, and such identification results directly to the maintenance of one Eucharisty per church. Moreover, the unity of the Christians as to the sacrament is a condition sine qua non and equivalent to the effort for the maintenance of the unity of the church. The privilege of the officiation of the sacrament was associated with the bishop and bishop alone, who, by officiating in the way of the Christ, both formally and essentially, was the head and the epicenter of the Eucharistic congregation. This reality was all the more apparent in the first Christian centuries, when in every local church there were indeed celebrated only one Eucharistic liturgy by the competent bishop. One then could remark that today in the various bishoprics there is not just one but several Eucharistic congregations as a consequence of the division in dioceses. So the officiation of the sacrament has ceased to depend exclusively on the bishop, but the genesis and of the dioceses and the officiation of the sacrament by the priests did not result in a fragmentation of the episcopocentric Eucharistia. Rather, the Eucharistia officiated by the bishops is the extension of that of the main bishop, and this is why the priests do that in the name of the bishop. The Eucharistic congregations of the dioceses are various aspects of the Eucharistia of the bishop on which they depend, and in such a way there remains the unity of only one and single Eucharistia that is a condition sine qua non for the overall unity of every local church. In the light of the above considerations, it becomes apparent why the existence of more than one bishops in a single province cannot be tolerated. Such a situation, if it was allowed, would result in a fragmentation of the sacrament, since in that way we would no longer have only one bishop per church. One and single Eucharisty by one bishop ceases automatically to exist, and the subsequent consequence is the fragmentation of the unity of the church, since the condition would be the unity of Holy Eucharisty. The ecclesiastical unity without the unity in Eucharistia is unfathomable, and to attain such unity it is not possible to have but one congregation of all faithful of one local church under one and only bishop who operates in the name and in the example of Christ. Here is also the main crux of the problem of the Orthodox diaspora, which, if not the most crucial, is definitely one of the most crucial issues of to be dealt with by the forthcoming Pan-Orthodox Council, an issue that has preoccupied in the past those preparing the Pan-Orthodox Council, being a cause of friction and tensions amongst the Orthodox churches. Given the time limitations, I will be moving away from problems in the past, and I will rather focus myself on the latest and the course the issue has been taken as of late. The organization in order of the Orthodox diaspora was dealt with by the recent Pan-Orthodox Council that took place in the Orthodox Center of the First Patriarchate in Chambézy in June 2009. the activities and debates of the fourth pre-council conference greatly focused on the works of the preparatory committee of the decades of the years 1993. During the conference, there was established a common intention of the Orthodox churches for the quickest possible solution to the problem of diaspora and its organization in a way such as to be conformant with the Orthodox ecclesiology and the canonic tradition of the Orthodox Church. The existence, therefore, of only one bishop by province to whom there would answer all faithful, irrespective of their mother tongue or national origin. It was also made clear that for pastoral and historic reasons it would be impossible under the circumstances to apply this solution for that region. The conference decided to propose the establishment of a transitory module that would prepare the situation for a more canonic, strictly canonic solution of the problem as it was set. According to this transitory interim, so to speak, proposal, there would be episcopic conferences per region to comprise all bishops of the region, those that are simultaneously and parallelly active within a single territory. Such move is not to affect the current regime in effect, meaning that the diaspora bishops will still be answering the same hierarchy as today. The conference also approved a draft regulation whereby there were regulated the fundamental principles of organization and functioning of the episcopal conferences. It is important that under the terms of the agreement, those conferences would be chaired by the first of those bishops answering the Patriarchate of Constantinople, and in case of absence, the chairmanship will be governed by the order of the Diptych. This would be to serve the purpose of unity of the Orthodox Church and for common action amongst all Orthodox of the region in order to tackle the various pastoral issues. Moreover, there will be common representation of the Orthodox against vis-à-vis all other regions and also vis-à-vis the hierarchy of the region. It goes without saying that issues of common interest will be dealt with, like the culture of and the education. Also to be noted is that the resolutions of this conference will be adopted on the basis of the principle of the unanimousness of all churches represented. So much more than a qualified majority, it takes unanimousness, and the bishops that cover more than one diocese will be able to participate also toll-free to these conferences. Participation of the bishops of the diaspora in these episcopal conferences does not imply a restriction of their rights or a change in their competencies. The episcopal conferences aim at shaping and expressing a common stance on the part of the Orthodox Church whenever this is deemed advisable, without this ever impeding bishops to express the views of the Church under the jurisdiction to the outside world. Within this context, it is further stressed that bishops, members of the episcopal conferences, remain answerable to their own churches. And when it comes to issues of general interest, such as to impose, according to the Confederation, a pan-Orthodox dealing, the chairman has to refer to the Ecumenical Patriarch. For a definitive tackling of this issue, however, and for the reinstatement of the order of things, it becomes necessary to undertake the organization of the Orthodox Diaspora by one and single ecclesiastical authority that will be in charge of the further episcopal structuring, and the only authority of the kind to be able to undertake the task is the Patriarchate of Constantinople, not only before or because of the very well-known dictions of the latest council, but because they are honored to be the first amongst all Orthodox churches. As a matter of fact, since the administrative organization of the bishoprics of the diaspora has to be materialized by way of local and not national or racial criteria, hence the need for the existence of only one bishop per province, necessarily we are to wonder which will the authority be that will designate those bishops, and to which these bishops will be answering. The answer to this question, according to the canonical law, can be only that this will be the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople as the first amongst all other Orthodox churches. The supranational character of the Ecumenical Patriarchate is the safest of all warranties for the respect of all cultural particularities of all the Orthodox communities. In such a way, there would be solved definitely the problem of diaspora, and the Orthodox Church would no longer look at least apparently divided with different shepherds and flocks in different areas. Thank you very much for your attention.